Real estate words and terms with meanings and examples, part number 10. Market value, which means the estimated price a property would sell for under normal conditions. For example, the market value of the home was appraised at $350,000. This means the home is expected to sell for $350,000 in the current market. Mortgage, which means a loan used to purchase real estate, secured by the property itself. For instance, she took out a mortgage to buy her first home. This means she borrowed money and agreed to repay it over time using the house as collateral. Mortgage broker, which means a person who arranges loans between borrowers and lenders. For example, we used a mortgage broker to find the best loan rate. This means a professional helped them shop for and secure a good mortgage deal. Mortgage insurance, PMIMIP, which means insurance that protects the lender if the borrower defaults, typically required if the down payment is low. For instance, he had to pay PMI because he only put 5% down. This means he paid insurance since his down payment was below 20%. Mortgage note, which means a legal document that outlines the loan terms and the borrower's promise to repay. For example, the mortgage note detailed the interest rate and repayment schedule. This means the borrower signed a written promise to repay the loan under specific terms. Negative amortization, which means when loan payments are less than the interest due, causing the balance to increase. For instance, with negative amortization, his loan balance grew over time. This means he owed more than he originally borrowed because unpaid interest was added. Net operating income, NOI, which means a property's income after operating expenses but before taxes and debt payments. For example, the apartment complex had an NOI of $75,000 last year. This means it earned $75,000 in profit after subtracting expenses but before debt. Option contract, which means a contract giving one party the right to buy or lease property within a set period. For instance, he signed an option contract to buy the land within 6 months. This means he paid for the right, but not the obligation, to buy later. Owner financing, which means when the seller finances the buyer's purchase instead of a bank. For example, they bought the home with owner financing and made payments directly to the seller. This means the seller acted as the lender. Package mortgage, which means a mortgage that includes both real estate and personal property, like appliances or furniture. For instance, their package mortgage included both the condo and the built-in washer and dryer. This means the mortgage covered real property and personal items together. Parcel map, which means a map that shows the boundaries and divisions of land parcels. For example, the developer consulted the parcel map before dividing the land into lots. This means they used the map to plan property lines and divisions. Partial release, which means when a lender releases part of the property from a mortgage, often after partial payment. For instance, the bank issued a partial release after he sold one lot from the mortgaged property. This means that specific portion was freed from the mortgage. Permits, which means official approvals required before certain construction or remodeling can begin. For example, they obtained building permits before adding a second floor. This means they got legal approval for the construction. Penthouse, which means a high-end unit on the top floor of a building, often with luxury features and views. For instance, she rented a PH suite with a rooftop terrace and panoramic views. This means she chose the top-level luxury apartment. Plat map, which means a detailed map showing property boundaries, streets, and easements in a subdivision. For example, the buyer reviewed the plat map to understand the exact lot size and location. This means the map helped identify the property's boundaries and layout. Points, which means fees paid to lower a mortgage's interest rate, usually 1 point equals 1% of the loan. For instance, he paid 2 points to reduce his loan's interest rate by 0.5%. This means he paid extra upfront to lower his interest over time. Power of attorney, which means legal authority given to someone to act on another person's behalf. For example, she used a power of attorney to let her brother sign the documents while she was abroad. This means her brother had legal authority to act for her. Pre-approval, which means a lender's conditional commitment to offer a loan after reviewing a buyer's financial information. For instance, they got pre-approval before house hunting to know their budget. This means they were qualified by a lender to borrow up to a certain amount. Prepayment penalty, which means a fee charged for paying off a loan early. For example, the loan had a prepayment penalty if paid off within the first 2 years. This means early repayment would result in extra charges. Pre-qualification, which means an estimate of what a borrower might be able to borrow based on basic financial info. For instance, she received a pre-qualification letter after a short conversation with the lender. This means she got an informal loan estimate without full documentation. Probate sale, which means a property sale required to settle the estate of a deceased person. For example, the home was listed as a probate sale following the owner's death. This means the court supervised the sale as part of the estate process. Promissory note, which means a written promise to repay a specific amount of money under agreed terms. For instance, the borrower signed a promissory note outlining the loan terms and schedule. This means they committed in writing to repay the debt. Prorations, which means the fair division of costs, like taxes or rent, between buyer and seller at closing. For example, property taxes were prorated so each party paid for their share of the year. This means both buyer and seller split the tax amount based on ownership period. Property management, which means the overseeing of real estate operations like maintenance and tenant handling on behalf of the owner. For instance, they hired a property management company to handle rent collection and repairs. This means the company managed the daily tasks for the landlord. Purchase agreement, which means a binding contract between buyer and seller outlining terms of a property sale. For example, both parties signed the purchase agreement after agreeing on the price and conditions. This means the contract officially confirmed the deal between buyer and seller.